I sat in the wood-paneled office as my grandfather's lawyer prepared to read the will. My brother Tyler lounged confidently in his Italian suit across from me, occasionally glancing at my department store clothes with barely disguised contempt. He had always been the golden child, the successful investment banker with the perfect life. I was just a high school teacher who drove a 20-year-old truck when the lawyer announced the $6. $1 million inheritance. Tyler's face relaxed into a smug smirk. Then the lawyer said, "My name," and Tyler froze, his expression shattering like glass hitting concrete. In that moment, our family dynamic changed forever. Before I tell you the full story of what happened next and why my grandfather made this unexpected choice, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. What unfolded in that office changed my family forever. My name is Jonas, and at 32 years old, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy long ago. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where everyone knew the Hammond family. My grandfather, Arthur Hammond, had built a manufacturing empire from nothing, becoming one of the wealthiest men in the state. His success cast a long shadow over our family, creating expectations that shaped our childhood in ways I never fully understood until much later. From the beginning, my brother Tyler seemed destined for greatness. 4 years older than me, he excelled at everything he touched. Straight-A student quarterback of the football team, student body president. Our parents never tried to hide their preference for him. At family dinners, the conversation revolved around Tyler's latest accomplishment, while my solid B+ average and position on the debate team warranted barely a nod. Our home itself reflected this hierarchy. Tyler had the largest bedroom with his own bathroom, while I had the smallest room at the end of the hall. When it came time for cars, Tyler received a new sedan for his 16th birthday. I inherited his old one when my turn came 2 years later. Christmas mornings were particularly revealing. Tyler's pile of gifts always towered over mine, not just in quantity, but in quality and thoughtfulness. "Your brother is going places," my father would say, not realizing how those words cemented my place as the family afterthought. "He needs these advantages to reach his potential." At family gatherings, aunts and uncles would flock to Tyler, asking about his college applications or sports achievements. I would stand awkwardly at the snack table, occasionally fielding questions about whether I was doing as well as your brother yet. I learned to smile and shake my head, accepting my role as the lesser Hammond. The strange thing was, I was never truly a disappointment by objective standards. I maintained good grades, participated in extracurricular activities, and stayed out of trouble. In any other family, I might have been considered a success. But next to Tyler's blinding star, my steady glow was nearly invisible. This dynamic could have broken me, but instead, it forged something unexpected: independence. While Tyler sought our parents' approval in everything, I learned to find validation within myself. When I decided to study education in college, rather than business or law, my parents barely concealed their disappointment. "Teachers don't make money," my father said bluntly. "Are you sure you want to settle for that?" I was sure. Working with students gave me purpose that chasing wealth never could. My modest apartment and simple lifestyle became a quiet rebellion against the materialistic values that dominated my family conversations. While I sometimes felt the sting of being overlooked, I developed resilience that Tyler, with his cushioned path, never needed to build. In a family where I often felt like an outsider, my grandfather Arthur was the one person who never made me feel less than. While my parents doted on Tyler, Grandpa showed me a different kind of attention, quieter but more genuine. Some of my earliest memories are of his workshop behind his sprawling Victorian home, where the smell of sawdust and varnish created a sanctuary from the constant comparisons I faced elsewhere. "Hand me that plane, Jonas," he would say, teaching me the names and purposes of each tool while Tyler was off at some sports practice. There's real satisfaction in creating something with your own hands. Every other weekend, we would drive to the lake in his old truck, fishing poles secured in the back. Those quiet mornings on the water taught me more than how to catch trout. Grandpa spoke about patience, about observing the world carefully, about finding value in silence. Most people are so busy talking, they never learn anything new, he would say, his eyes crinkling at the corners. During these outings, he asked about my interests, my thoughts, my dreams, questions no one else in the family bothered to pose. When I told him I wanted to become a teacher, he nodded thoughtfully. "Teaching is noble work," he said. "Building minds matters more than building fortunes." On my 16th birthday, Grandpa gave me his restored 1967 Ford pickup truck. My parents were mortified that I would drive such an old beater rather than something newer, but that truck represented something special between us. "This truck has character," Grandpa told me, handing over the keys. "Just like you." Our bond deepened in his final years. When Grandpa's health began failing and he moved to an assisted living facility, I visited him every Wednesday without fail. I would bring books. His favorites were historical biographies and philosophy, and read to him when his eyesight began to dim. Tyler visited occasionally, usually around holidays or when our parents organized family gatherings at the facility, but his visits were brief and performed with an air of obligation. During those weekly visits, Grandpa and I had conversations that still guide me today. "Success leaves clues, Jonas," he told me once, his voice weaker, but his mind still sharp. But most people look for the wrong ones. Just 3 weeks before he passed, during what would be our final, lucid conversation, he squeezed my hand and said something that puzzled me. "At the time, value is not always where people look for it. Remember that." I nodded, not understanding then that he was leaving me with more than just cryptic wisdom. While I was finding my path as an educator, Tyler was busy building exactly the kind of life our parents had envisioned for him. After graduating from an Ivy League business school, fully funded by our parents, and a generous contribution from Grandpa, he landed a coveted position at a prestigious investment banking firm in New York. His rise was meteoric. Within 5 years, he had his own corner office with a view of Central Park. His social media profiles documented a life that seemed plucked from a luxury magazine. Designer suits, a sleek sports car, vacations to exclusive resorts in places I could barely locate on a map. At family gatherings, which he attended with decreasing frequency, he would arrive late, make a grand entrance, and spend the evening regaling everyone with tales of closed deals and brushes with celebrities. "You should see my new place," he would announce to the room, pulling out his phone to show photos of his Manhattan apartment. "The building has a concierge and a rooftop pool." Our parents absorbed these stories with glowing pride. "Tyler is really making something of himself," my mother would say often within my earshot. My father would nod in agreement, adding, "That boy understands ambition." What no one seemed to notice was how Tyler's calls to Grandpa grew shorter and less frequent. When I visited the nursing home, the staff would often mention how nice it was that someone visited regularly. "Your grandfather looks forward to Wednesdays so much," one nurse told me. "It is the highlight of his week." When Grandpa's health took a sharp decline, I called Tyler immediately. "I have this massive deal closing," he explained. "I just cannot get away right now. Tell him I will see him next month when things settle down." But things never settled down enough. Even in Grandpa's final week, Tyler managed only a brief video call, most of which he spent checking his watch and explaining how important his current project was. I sat by Grandpa's bedside for those last 3 days, reading his favorite passages and holding his hand as he drifted in and out of consciousness. After Grandpa passed, Tyler flew in to take charge of the funeral arrangements. He insisted on the most expensive casket, the most elaborate flower arrangements, and a reception at the city's finest hotel. "Grandpa deserves the best," he declared, though I knew our grandfather would have preferred something simpler and more meaningful. Throughout the funeral planning and service, Tyler made numerous comments about honoring Grandpa's legacy and continuing his business success. The unspoken assumption hung in the air. Tyler would inherit the bulk of Grandpa's considerable estate, and everyone, including me, expected it. 2 weeks after the funeral, we gathered at the office of Thomas Wilson, my grandfather's attorney, for over 40 years. The conference room felt unnecessarily formal with its dark mahogany table and leather chairs, oil paintings of stern-looking men in suits watching our family from gilded frames. I arrived early, choosing a seat near the end of the table where I could observe without being the center of attention. My parents entered next, nodding curtly in my direction before taking seats at the head of the table. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins filtered in, filling the room with subdued conversation about the weather and recent family news. Tyler arrived last naturally. He strode in, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, his confidence filling the room. He shook hands with the men, kissed the women on their cheeks, and made a show of checking his expensive watch as he sat directly across from me. "Sorry to keep everyone waiting," he said, though he clearly was not. "Conference call ran long. You know how it is." He directed this last comment to our father, who nodded appreciatively, as if Tyler's tardiness was further evidence of his importance. Thomas Wilson entered the room, carrying a leather portfolio. He was a tall, thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a precisely trimmed white beard. After offering condolences and explaining the basic process, he began distributing smaller bequests to various family members, modest sums, to cousins, some jewelry, to aunts, and family heirlooms to specific individuals Grandpa had selected. As these smaller gifts were announced, Tyler grew increasingly restless, checking his phone and occasionally shooting impatient glances at the attorney. His leg bounced under the table, betraying his eagerness to get to the main event, the distribution of Grandpa's considerable fortune, estimated to be worth over $6 million. When the smaller bequests were complete, Wilson cleared his throat and opened a larger document. Now, for the primary distribution of Arthur Hammond's estate, valued at approximately $6.1 million, including investments, property, and business holdings. Tyler leaned forward, a slight smirk playing at the corners of his mouth as he glanced in my direction. His entire posture screamed expectation. He had been preparing for this moment his entire life. Our parents shifted forward as well, no doubt already planning how Tyler would manage his inheritance. The entirety of this portion of the estate, Wilson continued adjusting his glasses, is bequeathed to Mr. Arthur's grandson. Tyler's smirk widened. Jonas Hammond. The silence that followed was absolute. Tyler's face froze in an expression of disbelief, his smirk half-formed and now grotesque in its incompleteness. My parents gasped in unison, my mother actually placing her hand over her heart as if she had been physically struck. "There must be some mistake," Tyler finally said, his voice higher than usual. Wilson shook his head. "There is no mistake, Mr. Hammond. Your grandfather was quite specific and of completely sound mind when he signed this will 6 months ago." All eyes turned to me. I sat there as shocked as everyone else, my mind struggling to process what I had just heard. $6.1 million. The amount was incomprehensible. Mr. Jonas Wilson said, breaking the tense silence, "Your grandfather left this letter for you. Perhaps you would like to read it now." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name, written in Grandpa's distinctive handwriting. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded the letter. "Would you read it aloud?" Wilson suggested gently. "Arthur mentioned you might want to share it with the family." I cleared my throat and began reading my grandfather's final words to me. "My dear Jonas, if Wilson is giving you this letter, then I am gone, and you have just learned about your inheritance." I imagine there is quite a commotion in the room right now. A soft, nervous laugh escaped me at the accuracy of his prediction. "I want to explain my decision not just to you, but to our entire family. This choice was not made lightly, nor was it made to punish anyone. Rather, it reflects what I have observed throughout my life about what truly matters. Many will assume I have chosen you because you spent more time with me in my final years. While I treasured those visits, my decision goes much deeper. Throughout your lives, I have watched both you and your brother carefully. I have seen how you respond to challenges, how you treat others when there is nothing to gain, and what you value most deeply. Tyler has achieved much that appears impressive on the surface, but I have watched him pursue wealth as an end in itself, use relationships for personal advancement, and measure his worth solely through material success. These are the very traps I fell into during my early years in business, and they cost me dearly in ways money cannot fix. In you, Jonas, I have seen something different. You chose a path based on contribution rather than acquisition. I watched you spend hours helping struggling students without compensation. I saw you give your holiday bonus to the family of a student whose home had burned down. You visit elderly neighbors and drive them to appointments without being asked. You find joy in simple pleasures and show gratitude for what you have rather than resentment for what you do not. Both of you were tested many times without knowing it. When I pretended to forget my wallet at restaurants, you quietly paid without mentioning it. Tyler made sure I knew he had covered the bill and referenced it for months afterward. When I asked for help moving furniture, you came immediately. Tyler sent a moving service and charged it to my account. Money does not create character, it reveals it. I built my fortune from nothing, but I failed to instill these values in my own children. I have watched with sadness as your parents reinforced achievement over character and appearance over substance. This was my failure as much as anyone's. Jonas, I am entrusting you with my life's work because I believe you will use these resources wisely and with compassion. This inheritance is not a reward for being better than your brother. It is a responsibility I believe you are prepared to handle. My hope is that this decision will eventually bring healing and understanding to our family about what truly constitutes wealth and success. With love and faith in you, Grandpa Arthur. By the time I finished reading, my voice was barely above a whisper. The room remained silent for several long moments before erupting into chaos. "This is outrageous," Tyler shouted, rising to his feet. He obviously manipulated Grandpa when he was weak and confused. No one in their right mind would make this decision. Our father nodded vigorously. Arthur must not have been thinking clearly. "Jonas, you know this is not right." "I assure you," Wilson interjected firmly, "that Arthur Hammond was of completely sound mind. I personally verified his competence, as did his physician. This will is legally binding and explicit in its intentions." "I will contest this," Tyler threatened, pointing at me. "You will not get away with this, Jonas." "I did not know about any of this," I said quietly, still processing the letter's contents. I had no idea Grandpa was planning this. Several relatives began talking at once, their reactions split. A couple of cousins who had always been friendly with me offered congratulations, while others aligned with Tyler, shooting accusatory glances in my direction. "This meeting is adjourned," Wilson announced over the commotion. "I am available to discuss legal details with Jonas when he is ready. The rest of you are welcome to review the will documentation through your own legal counsel." Tyler stormed out without another word, slamming the door behind him. My parents approached me, their expressions cold. "I hope you are satisfied," my mother said, her voice trembling with anger. "You have torn this family apart." They left without waiting for my response. As the room emptied, I remained seated, the letter still in my hands, wondering if Grandpa's fortune was worth the family it might cost me. The weeks following the will reading were some of the most difficult of my life. My phone rang constantly with calls from angry relatives accusing me of manipulating Grandpa or demanding I do the right thing and share the inheritance equally. I received scathing text messages from Tyler, alternating between threats of legal action and personal attacks on my character. My parents organized a family dinner ostensibly to work things out, but it quickly devolved into an inquisition. Seated at the head of the table where Grandpa used to sit, My father demanded an explanation. "Just tell us what you did to convince him," he insisted. "What stories did you tell about your brother while you had Arthur all to yourself?" I never spoke badly about Tyler. I tried to explain. "I just spent time with Grandpa. We talked about books, about my students, about his life." Convenient Tyler interrupted. All these private conversations no one else was around for. No one seemed interested in the contents of Grandpa's letter or the explanation he had provided. They had constructed a narrative where I was the manipulator and no evidence could convince them otherwise. Meanwhile, Tyler hired a high-priced attorney to investigate the will. They demanded Grandpa's medical records, interviewed nursing home staff, and even suggested a posthumous psychological evaluation, though such a thing was legally impossible. The family fractured into factions. Most sided with Tyler, believing the natural order had been disrupted. A small number, mostly those who had also felt overlooked in family dynamics, expressed support for me privately, but rarely publicly. The rumors were perhaps the most painful part. I heard from a cousin that Tyler was telling people I had prevented him from visiting Grandpa, intercepting his calls, and lying about his availability. Others suggested I had fabricated stories about Tyler's behavior to poison Grandpa against him. None of it was true, but the allegations spread through the extended family like wildfire. My invitation to Thanksgiving dinner was rescinded via a terse text message from my mother. "We think it best if you make other plans this year. The family needs time to heal from your actions." Despite my financial windfall, I had never felt more alone. I questioned whether Grandpa had done me a favor or cursed me. What good was wealth if it cost me my entire family? During this dark period, support came from unexpected quarters. My principal at school expressed complete faith in my integrity. A few distant cousins who had always felt like outsiders in the family hierarchy reached out with words of encouragement. These small gestures kept me from completely doubting myself as the family narratives threatened to rewrite my own understanding of my relationship with Grandpa. The initial shock of becoming a millionaire overnight was overwhelming. I had no experience managing substantial wealth, and the responsibility weighed heavily on me. Following Wilson's recommendation, I met with a team of financial advisors who helped create a comprehensive management plan. "Most sudden wealth is lost within a few years," my primary advisor explained. "We want to make sure that doesn't happen to you." Despite the newfound financial freedom, I decided to continue teaching. My classroom had always been my sanctuary, and now more than ever, I needed the normalcy and purpose it provided. My students had no idea their history teacher was now a multimillionaire, and I preferred to keep it that way. I used a portion of the inheritance to establish a scholarship fund at my school for students pursuing careers in education or community service. The first year, we awarded 5 scholarships to deserving seniors who might otherwise have struggled to afford college. One of my first major personal projects was renovating Grandpa's old workshop, which had been included in my inheritance. The building had fallen into disrepair after he moved to the nursing home, but I spent weekends restoring it to its former glory using the very tools he had once taught me to use. The rhythmic motion of sanding wood and the smell of varnish connected me to him in a way that brought comfort during the family estrangement. In a dusty corner of the workshop, I discovered a metal box containing Grandpa's journals. Dating back decades, they chronicled his business deals, family observations, and personal philosophies. I was stunned to find detailed notes about both Tyler and me from throughout our lives. Tyler, age 12, one entry read, "Excellent report card today. Made sure everyone at dinner heard about it." When Jonas tried to share his science award, Tyler interrupted to continue his story. Arthur and June did not redirect him. Pattern continues. Another entry from more recent years stated, "Jonas visited today. Brought fresh bread and fixed the loose railing without being asked. Refused payment. Tyler called for 8 minutes, mostly talking about his new car. Asked if my portfolio included shares in the manufacturing company. always looking for an angle. Perhaps most revealing were notes about what Grandpa called his character tests, deliberate situations he had created to observe our reactions. Some were simple, like pretending to forget his wallet at restaurants. Others were more elaborate, such as mentioning fictitious investment opportunities to see if we would show interest in the potential gain or concern about the ethics involved. Reading these journals helped me understand the deeper purpose behind Grandpa's decision. This wasn't about favorites or punishment. It was about his genuine concern for how wealth would affect each of us based on our demonstrated character. I came to see the inheritance not as a prize I had won, but as a responsibility I had been entrusted with. Grandpa had not given me wealth as a reward. He had given me stewardship over something he spent his life building because he believed I would honor its deeper purpose. This perspective transformed my approach to the inheritance. Rather than focusing on what I could buy or how I could benefit, I began asking how I could extend Grandpa's legacy of creating opportunity for others. While I was finding my footing, Tyler's life was unraveling in ways no one had anticipated. His legal challenge to the will hit a roadblock when Wilson produced extensive documentation of Grandpa's competence, including video recordings of their meetings discussing the will's provisions. More dramatically, the scrutiny surrounding the will contest led to unexpected discoveries about Tyler's professional conduct. His firm launched an internal investigation after questions arose about his management of certain client accounts. Within months, evidence emerged of ethical violations involving misrepresented investment returns and unauthorized trading. Tyler lost his position at the firm amid rumors of possible criminal charges. His carefully constructed image of success began to crumble as the truth about his financial situation came to light. The luxurious lifestyle he had flaunted had been built partly on substantial debt and increasingly risky financial maneuvers. I learned about much of this through family whispers rather than direct communication. Tyler and I had not spoken since the will reading until one rainy Tuesday when I found him waiting beside Grandpa's grave during my regular visit. "Come to gloat," he demanded as I approached his appearance, noticeably different. The bespoke suit was gone, replaced by department store clothes, not unlike what I typically wore. His face looked tired, the confident smile replaced by tight lines of stress. "I come every month," I answered, simply placing fresh flowers beside the headstone. "I did not expect to see you here." "I want my share," he said bluntly. "Half of that money is rightfully mine." "You know it, I know it, everyone knows it." I had actually considered offering Tyler financial help, knowing his situation had deteriorated. "I cannot just give you half," I explained, "but I am willing to help if you are willing to accept some conditions. Financial counseling, a reasonable budget." Conditions? Tyler laughed bitterly. "You think you can put me on an allowance? I do not need your charity or your judgment." "It is not about judgment," I tried to explain. "It is about honoring what Grandpa wanted." Read his letter again. "This was never about punishing you." Tyler left without responding. Weeks later, I heard he had been forced to move to a much smaller apartment and sell his sports car to cover mounting debts. The news gave me no satisfaction, only sadness for how far things had fallen. It was around this time that our parents finally reached out, not to reconcile with me, but to ask for help with Tyler's situation. The conversation was strained, filled with awkward pauses and unspoken accusations. But it was the first crack in the wall of silence that had formed between us. On the one-year anniversary of the will reading, I invited my entire family to meet at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant with a mediator present. I was surprised when most accepted, including Tyler and our parents. The initial atmosphere was tense, with minimal eye contact and stilted small talk. When everyone had arrived, I distributed copies of selected entries from Grandpa's journals, carefully chosen to illuminate his thinking without embarrassing anyone unnecessarily. I wanted everyone to understand this was never about me manipulating Grandpa or him playing favorites, I explained. These are his own words, written over many years, showing how he came to his decision. Tyler scoffed initially, but grew quieter as he read through the entries. Our parents looked uncomfortable, particularly at passages describing their consistent favoritism. Grandpa wanted this inheritance to heal our family, not divide it, I continued. The past year has been the opposite of what he hoped for. Slowly, hesitantly, family members began to speak. Tyler admitted with clear reluctance to some of the financial improprieties that had cost him his career. I took shortcuts, he acknowledged. I wanted to keep looking successful even when deals were falling apart. Our mother, in a moment that stunned everyone, tearfully acknowledged her role in the family dynamic. We did favor Tyler, she admitted. We thought we were supporting his potential, but we were unfair to you, Jonas. I see that now. The conversation was difficult, with old hurts surfacing and defensive reactions threatening to derail progress. But by the end of that long dinner, we had agreed to begin family counseling and work toward understanding. It was a small step, but more than I had dared to hope for. In the 2 years since inheriting Grandpa's estate, I found purpose in creating a foundation that embodied his values. The Arthur Hammond Educational Opportunity Foundation focused on providing not just scholarships, but comprehensive support for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Using Grandpa's business connections, I established an apprenticeship program connecting students with skilled trades and professional mentors. I expanded my own teaching to include financial literacy courses, helping young people understand the principles that Grandpa had valued. Throughout this work, I maintained the modest lifestyle I had always lived. I moved to a slightly nicer home, but chose one well within walking distance of my school rather than an ostentatious mansion. The vintage truck Grandpa gave me remained my primary vehicle, now fully restored, thanks to the skills he had taught me in his workshop. That workshop became a community space where local youth could learn woodworking and practical skills. On weekends, the sound of sawing and hammering filled the air as a new generation discovered the satisfaction of creating with their hands, just as Grandpa had taught me. In my personal life, I found unexpected romance with a fellow teacher who shared my values and had no interest in my inheritance. Lisa appreciated the simple pleasures that had always meant more to me than material wealth: hiking in state parks, cooking elaborate meals together, and engaging in passionate discussions about books and ideas. My relationship with my family remained complicated, but was slowly healing. Tyler and I would never be close, but the open hostility had faded into a cautious civility. He had started a smaller financial consulting business, more modest, but seemingly built on sounder principles. Our parents made efforts to distribute their attention more evenly, though old habits occasionally resurfaced. The most meaningful change was in my understanding of Grandpa's legacy. The money substantial, as it was represented the least important part of what he had given me. His true gifts were the values he had instilled, the skills he had taught, and the wisdom he had shared during those quiet moments in his workshop or on the lake. I came to realize that character does indeed develop through challenges rather than advantages. Tyler, who had received every advantage, struggled when faced with real adversity. I, who had learned to make my own way with less external support, found I had developed resilience that served me well in managing both wealth and family conflict. Money, as Grandpa had suggested in his letter, truly did reveal character rather than create it. Some relatives who had barely acknowledged my existence before the inheritance suddenly became extremely attentive. Others who had genuine relationships with me continued to relate in exactly the same way, neither intimidated nor motivated by my changed financial circumstances. 2 years after that dramatic day in the lawyer's office, I found myself at peace with Grandpa's choice. The inheritance had been a test in itself, one final lesson from a man who had spent his life learning what truly mattered. I hoped that in how I managed that legacy, I was passing his test and honoring his faith in me. Have you ever experienced an unexpected twist in a family situation that revealed someone's true character? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this account of my journey with my grandfather's inheritance resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family dynamics, unexpected life changes, and the lessons we learn through them. Do not forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that true wealth is measured by character, not dollar signs. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most valuable inheritances cannot be measured in money.